Our guest today is Elshad Shirinov. Elshad is the co-founder of CV Abroad. He has been a software engineer for over 1.5 decades, and then he has been a hiring manager. He started CV Abroad with Olga Sokolova to guide international students and first-timers with their first recruitment in Germany and Europe in general. In this episode, we discuss a lot of things that mostly revolve around curriculum vitae and cover letters. The links of CV Abroad are given in the episode description. Hi, this is Anirban Saha, and I welcome you on behalf of the team to one new episode of Season 2, where we interview a selected few professionals in the domain of data science and converse about what it takes to get a job in the real world. If you like our work, hit the follow button on our LinkedIn page. The link is in the podcast description. Also, do share your feedback with us and listen to our other podcasts. Let's get started. Elshad, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here. I'm very glad to speak to students. It's always nice, and I also spend a lot of time actually talking to a lot of students and people who are just starting studies in the line of my work. Nice to be here.
We could start with you giving a little introduction to CV Abroad for our audience, and that would be a head start to this discussion.
Of course, gladly. Let's just start by saying that CV Abroad has been started by me and Olga Sokolova 2.5 years ago. So both of us had this idea to some degree. I was team lead or tech lead at that time at a company that is basically Konica Minolta, just one of the daughter companies. So I was naturally involved in hiring a lot. And what I've noticed is that a lot of international candidates who are otherwise very good professionals struggle a lot with their presentation and in general with navigating the labor market of Germany. So I thought, since I myself have a migration background, because my father actually came from Azerbaijan. But yes, so I had this background myself, but I had the luck of basically coming to Germany very early. I went to school here, so I had a quite easy start, all in all, not so different from all the Germans. So that's why we thought basically, since we both have this background and we are quite a good tandem, because basically I'm the technical guy and Olga concentrates on the non-technical people and on psychology, on interview preparation, things like that. Bit by bit, CV Abroad grew into basically a one-stop shop. All in all, we help pretty much everybody who has this cultural translation being in the way, basically. By cultural translation, I just mean things work differently in different countries, and first and foremost CVs, but also of course all the customs, like how is an interview done, just where to look for a matching company, and maybe also how to approach it, how to apply, how to use LinkedIn or Xing. Xing is a specifically German thing. Like to be successful and to really like start your career. And starting in the last year and quite successfully, we offer now a program which is called Land Your Job. And I can say we've been quite successful until now. So we pretty much offer all the support we can for like in every step, and also just moral support, which is sometimes also quite important to get people to start their career in Germany.
I thank you for that description, and from the description I caught up a couple of things. You mentioned things are different in different countries, mm-hmm. Where to look for information, how to approach, and applicants need help around CVs and not necessarily for the CVs, right?
First of all, of course, there are differences when it comes to CVs. That there are some very visible differences. So in US, you would probably have a one-pager CV. Very often, I see some kind of table CVs, so basically filled out forms coming from all over the place, mostly Asia. But also I see people very confused because they are looking for information, for example, for information in English, and find a lot of information which is not suitable for Germany because unfortunately, a lot of German like relevant resources on German CVs and on German hiring process is in German, which still is, it's kind of unfortunate.
Yes, we will deal with each one of these topics while we are conversing further. But first, while we were conversing about this episode, you mentioned about the unwritten rules of hiring process, right? And this is how this episode got its name. You also mentioned moral support while you were discussing right now. Let's talk a bit more on that. What do you think are the unwritten rules in hiring for a software engineering or a data science role?
The main unwritten rule, to be honest, is there are no hard rules. There is just understanding why you write the CV and who will read your CV. The CV is your only value proposition. You're like a business of one person. So as I said, there are no hard unwritten rules that you can break, but the main rule is you should explain in your CV, make it absolutely clear and visible why you can do this job. You apply for a job, you should make sure you explain why you can do it. The most important rules are just concentrate on the hard facts about yourself. So state all your skills, be very complete. So everything that you know, even a little, should go on your CV. The second thing is probably show something concrete, show some work. So if you have some project, whatever, being it pet project or project from previous work or project from studies, something concrete, something that shows off your work. This is like one of the most important things to show. So it's not enough just to like state all the, okay, I studied here and roughly what I studied. Sometimes it's even abbreviated so that you cannot quite tell what it is, like from the get-go. And it's not clear who this person is from the start because it just says name on top. So you should really think about some recruiters and HRs who will be probably reading your CV at first, and they will have roughly 10 seconds for just because they have a lot of applicants. So they will take roughly 10 seconds, maybe half a minute to scan your CV, and if they don't see like any potential, they will just throw it away, and that's it. And this is when you actually get a response like, we are very sorry, but at the current time, we cannot consider your CV, or something like we went with other candidates who were better. This is some standard answer. It doesn't give you any information, but I guarantee you in a lot of cases, and actually there is statistics which basically says 70% of CVs never make it to the actual hiring manager. Actually, nowadays, it's more common to have a dedicated recruiter. So you have an internal recruiter or an external recruiter. Just the difference is just they work inside the company or they work outside the company as a contractor, and they will take a look at your CV. They have to see right away why you are a good candidate.
Yeah, and when at least I talk to multiple people who are in HRs or are hiring managers, they come up with things that matter to them, and I'm the one who's left confused and not knowing what exactly how to do things. But since we are on the topic of CVs already, and you mentioned that you have been gathering applicants and getting CVs, what are the top 5 mistakes do you think an applicant makes? Except for the one that you already mentioned, that is writing abbreviations of the
Oh,
universities and the
yeah.
colleges they go to, except for that.
Yeah, let's try to go through it, say from the least important to the more important, because I think people tend to remember the last thing which is said. Yeah, so let's start with just format and formalities. German HR are rather like they want the full picture, the full information. State your full address, state your phone number. Also, in Germany, it's still common to either give your age or give your date of birth. In a lot of cases, also the place of birth. This is still this is just kind of a convention in Germany. If you like state your date of birth, state also your place of birth. And also, actually, particularly important for international candidates is maybe state your visa status. So why am I saying this? If you state what visa you already have or what visa you would apply for, then it alleviates some of the bureaucratic thoughts that employers tend to have. So so that's the format and formalities. Of course, I mentioned already the format should be adequate. So one pagers are not very common. Also try to avoid multiple columns because this can be confusing specifically for this automatic systems, but also for people. So try to not be very creative. The creative CVs are mostly from US again, just because they try to get as much information on one page. That's basically the first point. The second point, which I see a lot of people do kind of wrong, is the CV does not look professional. What do I mean by that? Well, if you include a picture, and it's still quite common in Germany to include a picture, but if you include a picture, please make it a professional picture. So just go to a photographer, make a picture. It's very easy. Apart from that, I'm talking about some strange fonts. Try to pick some normal, readable font. So Arial, maybe Calibri. On macOS, definitely Helvetica is the most common one. Just as I said, don't be too creative. It is actually important that it looks professional. So the third thing is probably pretty similar, is the language. For whatever reason, I'm not quite sure, but a lot of people have just simple plain mistakes in the language, and this is actually important. So if you have just plain mistakes, grammar mistakes in your CV, it doesn't look professional. It's basically you should make sure to either read it 10 times or even better, grab a native speaker somewhere, or maybe 2 or 3 very strong speakers if they are not native, and get them to proofread it. Yeah, so that's a simple one, I think a pretty clear one. And then come the more complicated mistakes. So think about the upper half of your first page of your CV should already communicate pretty clearly who you are and what you want. So this is why we, in a lot of times, advise to have a short summary, maybe a short goal statement, like who am I trying, like what position am I applying for? You should always find more. You did something, you had some projects, you did volunteer, something, gather some experience, even if you don't have a lot of working experience yet. And in this case, just a summary always gives you a very good place to start. Like I liked reading good summaries. What I didn't like was reading bad summaries, and I'll touch on this in a second. Because the last point, and to be honest, it's a very broad point, but I still bring it up because it's the most important point, is the content of your CV. So the biggest mistake is to have wrong content. And there are a lot of ways how the content can be wrong. So what is actually said in your CV. This ranges from how you formulate your sentences. For example, you should always try to, at least in English, you should try to start with a verb. So I write something like implemented something, implemented a big software, or I created something, or I ensured the quality of something. Try starting with the verb. It allows you to get to the point very quickly. You give a good start, and it should be also a powerful verb. So try not to write something like I worked on or I was involved, because it really sounds like you were just like the smallest piece in the whole team. No, it's that there are powerful verbs like as implemented, initiated, started, created, managed, whatever. So that there are very, very nice lists of those powerful verbs for your CV. That's just a minor thing to remember, but it helps already. The second important thing in the content is actually have facts and achievements and figures in your CV. This is like just how people's psychology work, how our heads work. We make a short break, we stop on numbers and on some very salient facts. Like, it's just the brain picks it out from the page and stops there. And you want like people to stop and read. So what I'm talking about is don't just say as a developer, I implemented software. What I read very often is I implemented requirements according to specifications. Well, you did not say very much. Everybody implements requirements based on some specifications. Please be more specific. Please say I implemented a database with 1,000 users per month. Yeah, that's stating something, and that has some facts and figures in it. So, for example, if you say I implemented a database for 1,000 users in 6 months, then as a hiring manager, I can start thinking, okay, that's quite a big project, or like a middle-sized project. You've done it in 6 months. Well, that's some pressure. So I know already you probably perform well under pressure because you kind of finished, even if you're a part of a team. By the way, if you're part of a team, state I was part of a team of 6, just because it's also important to know, are you good working in teams? Actually, this is also something like people say, I am a team player, but how do I know? Have you worked in a team? Maybe you have worked alone all the time, or never actually cooperated in a bigger team. Have you cooperated between between professions? Maybe you are a developer but communicated a lot with quality assurance, or maybe a data scientist and communicated a lot to management because you have submitted some reports and so on. State this kind of information and be concrete. Like, that's the part I'm missing most from most CVs. Is just there is so much. Don't get me wrong. There is so much blah blah. It's quite empty words and a lot of. So don't think you have to put nice words in there. Actually, HRs and recruiters are very trained, and hiring managers especially are very trained to see bullshit. So if I see bullshit, I know, okay. And then I start thinking, why do we have this? Are you hiding something? Are you trying to blow out like nothing? You should just get to the point.
Yeah,
so I think that's pretty much
yeah, and it is at exact this point I will place a very personal question, and I'm sure a lot of students who come from India represent my thoughts. When we want to show numbers, all right, for example, I worked in a multinational company. The team had 8 to 10 developers, and we worked on developing and implementing SAP stuff on supply chain, and we call it supply chain transformation. It had millions of data, right? But when we developed it, we did not know what is the size of the data. We were just given technical specifications and we went ahead and did it. Now, after years of having left that job, how do we mention numbers? So for a data scientist or someone who has been in data science, it might be easy to say, hey, I made a model which had 98% accuracy. or
Mhm.
I made something which reduced runtime from 10 seconds to 2 seconds. But for other people who start their career in multinational companies, who work for clients, and they are given work of, say, documentation, or even if it is development, they do not have the full visibility. There are times which is very often that they are not even able to meet the entire team, because half the team is on site and half the team is in India, somewhere scattered in 3 cities, Mumbai, Bangalore, Calcutta. Then how would a person come up with numbers? The person himself does not have visibility.
Sure. I mean, I understand that actually it's in a lot of cases, it's not that simple. And specifically, to be perfectly honest, this is why we work with candidates and help them, because it is really hard to excavate all the relevant numbers, but there are always relevant numbers. Because it's quite clear that you probably cannot state the most specific number always. But it's better to state some number, because then, first of all, as I said, it's a psychological thing, but also it gives the other side, so the employer, some kind of understanding what this project was. If you don't know some numbers, don't state this number. State a different number. Like, how many projects did you do in this 1 year? Was it 1 project? Was it 3 projects? Even just give the kind of rough size of a project. Say it's middle-sized project, or if you know it's like the project had some cost, but you cannot state the cost because it's obviously like not allowed by your contract. Like, you cannot say, we spent 30,000, or the client spent 100,000 on the project. You probably cannot state this, but you can say it's 6-figure or 5-figure. It already helps. So give some information. Like, make it as concrete as possible, and then you're fine.
That is actually a very nice insight, and we'll continue with the flow of the conversation. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that it is different in different countries, right?
It depends what, but actually,
yes.
Yeah, of course,
so
there are a lot of.
Do we have very specific differences in the CV format required in Germany?
In a CV format, as I said, it is like just like the whole content has to fit into this format, and also try to keep the format simple. So this kind of boils down to have it in one column, and probably it won't fit on one page. So think about having 2 pages, at most 3 or 4. 4 should actually be only if you have like decades of experience. Also try not to, like, Germans do not really enjoy having big gaps in your CV. So it should rather be like, if you have a gap, obviously you can have a gap, but it's maybe because you traveled, or maybe because you cared for, say, a sick relative. Just shortly stated.
Yeah, I would like to interrupt and very briefly explain gap for the audience.
Oh yeah.
Gap is the time when you have not worked for some period of time. And not studied and did nothing. I mean, nothing to show on your CV.
Yeah, but that's exactly my point. You should still at least mention roughly what was the matter there. So you're probably exchanging your work like every 2-3 years, maybe even more often. You should definitely try to not exchange your job like multiple times a year. This will be considered rather jumpy. Just don't leave unexplained gaps. Like, say, if it's more than half a year, so if it's half a year or more, and definitely state something. If it's less, say 3 to 6 months, it depends. You can probably leave a very short gap, but this really depends on the company a lot. So I've seen companies who complain about even a small gap of 3 months, but I've seen companies that are perfectly fine with 6 month gap. All right.
I will ask a couple of very targeted questions.
Sure, of course.
What you suggested is a person's persona should be reflected in their CV, right? Would you suggest a person also mentions his hobbies, extracurriculars as well?
Yeah, that's a common one. In general, yeah, you can state hobbies in any case, but the problem is most people just write the same thing. So like, I like travel, I like some sports, although sports we can talk about, but like, I like traveling, I like reading, I like watch Netflix. Yeah, pretty much everybody does this. So that's pretty much non-informative. So you could probably leave it out. But there are some hobbies that show something important about yourself. So, like, for example, if you are the captain of a cricket team, something like that, or you have actually, like, you have a blog, maybe. This tells something about you. At least it says, okay, I have some dedication. Like, if you have a blog for 5 years, well, you definitely have some dedication. You also have some creativity, and you also can, like, do something on your own. That's like your project. You started it. That's nice. This is definitely something that should go on your CV. I would argue, if you don't put it on your CV, even if you, like, you apply for a position as a data scientist, but you're writing a blog about beauty and fashion, that doesn't matter because it shows something about your character.
So basically, I can put my blog and podcasts both.
Of course, yeah. And you definitely, and I'm sure you definitely will, because it is important.
Yeah, I will also like to ask a question that is very common. Students here do multiple projects which are across domains. Suppose a student does projects on, say, computer vision, on medical images, and there are many projects on that domain. And now, after graduation, the person is applying for a natural language processing post. Would you suggest the person show all the projects that he has done or she has done, or shows things that are only relevant to the company that a person is applying to? I will generalize this question because I just realized this was a very bad question. Suppose a person has work experience that is not relevant to the company or the post that he or she is applying to. What would you suggest? They keep those work experiences on the CV, or just diminish them or remove them?
Work experience. Let's first talk about work experience. Even if you think it's irrelevant, put it on your CV for Germany, because German HRs do not like if you leave out something, and this definitely leads to a gap. Like, if you only put your relevant experience but don't include your like other experience. So even if, as I said, you kind of worked, I don't know, as a bouncer in a disco, or as or you sold burgers at the McDonald's, that's fine. State it, but don't go into details. Just put one line, the year, and like the title. Don't explain too much, because when it's clear it's irrelevant, just put it on your CV, because Germans really like this is probably a very German thing, just to have a complete picture. They want a complete picture. But when it comes to some additional stuff, so projects, maybe some hobbies again, or some pet projects of yours, which just complete your experience, there you're pretty much free. So select the most important, the most matching, just, it's easier to say it the other way around. If you can exclude a project from your CV and it doesn't harm your CV a lot, then exclude it. But as I said, it's like for work experience, it's just considered the kind of rule. That's one of the unwritten rules. Probably put everything in terms of work experience and education into your CV. Projects and so on, you're pretty much free. But I would suggest actually to mention a bit more than, or like, feel free to mention projects that are not quite absolute 100% match. Just because you might be underestimating the worth of this additional experience. but the hiring manager might actually value it. So since you don't know, rather like include a bit more. Just don't produce a large, huge CV that nobody can read. Okay.
There is another very popular question in the student community is how do you modify your CV for the ATS, the applicant tracking softwares?
It's quite simple. Don't confuse the system, which means avoid visual elements, avoid multiple columns, to be honest. So don't make it too hard for the system. It already has to work quite hard to collect all your information from there. If you put it in 2 columns, if you add a lot of visual elements it cannot read, also avoid strange and uncommon section names. Like some people get very creative and write something like, what can I offer you? And then they state their skills. Don't do that. Just call the section skills. And also have sections. Like, have clear sections that have a caption that basically says working experience. Then the system definitely will understand this is your working experience. Also try to if you have and you will have dates on there. Pick a format that is actually readable and maybe even which is common in the country you're applying for. So in Germany, just it's just common to write it 22.11.2021, something like that. So try to pick a format which is clearly understandable. Also, for an automatic assistant. And then, last but not least, to be honest, the ATS is all about keyword. It just looks for the important keywords, and the keywords are mostly pretty much the same as they state already in the job ad. So you read a job ad online and you apply. So you should really think what do they state? What do they what are your responsibilities? There are a lot of keywords in there. Some in a lot of cases, but also what do they expect from you? There is a section in the job ad talking about what specifically do they expect from you, and this the important keywords from there for say IT people. It's very simple. It's mostly the names of the technologies and some abbreviations. You need to and programming languages, something like this. You definitely want to have these keywords on your CV, and also when you apply to this specific job ad, try to also spell the keywords the same way, so they are very smart, employing machine learning, deep neural networks, and so on. Some are very, very simple, rule-based, regular expressions. Those systems become cheaper and cheaper, and something like Personio, which is actually quite popular nowadays for smaller companies and middle-sized companies. They offer a lot of this functionality already, and it's very cheap. So small companies, if they want to save some time, they will definitely have such a system. Okay.
As a hiring manager, did you go through people's LinkedIn profiles? Be honest.
To be honest, I did, because I did not do it for everybody, of course not, because there were a lot of applicants and I wouldn't spend so much time to go through the LinkedIn profile of everyone. But the ones who were shortlisted, of course. Well, actually, that's probably not true of everyone. I'm just a very curious guy. So even before someone comes in for an interview, I want to gather as much information as possible.
So as much information as possible, does that include going through a person's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
Actually, yes.
blog, and I do not know which kind of social media younger people.
That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So if you LinkedIn is one piece of the puzzle. Actually, LinkedIn is something you want to share, and you should really, to be honest, nowadays you really should think about your LinkedIn and Singh profile as not just my employer will check my LinkedIn profile. No, in a lot of cases your employer will find you through your LinkedIn profile or your Singh profile, because this is actually how recruiters reach out to people. And you should really think about optimizing your profile and also have a lot of connections to other people. Try to also build a real network. So try to add people who are at least like somehow connected to you. But also don't forget about you can always do informational interviews. Informational interview is just when you say find a person who already works at the company you want to go to, or maybe who just works in the same profession that you just want to start your career in, and you just write them and ask them if they maybe have 15 minutes to talk to you and to tell you how does it work. It is really all right.
We have a teammate, Shubham, who has mastered this entire thing of approaching people and talking with them, and getting information.
Like German employers kind of are known for being very inquisitive. Like, they try to gather as much information.
That's a good piece of information, trust me.
So Germans, in a lot of way, they see all the problems. They try to like foresee, to plan ahead. So they think ahead of time of all the problems. And the same goes for hiring. Hiring is a very, hiring is a dangerous thing. Because if you hire the wrong person, it can easily cost you, say, 50,000 euro or 100,000 euro. So yeah, it is very expensive to hire people. So honestly and naturally, Germans are also very, just very picky in that as well. Or they try to foresee as many problems as they can. So this is why a lot of employers will be very rigorous when checking your background.
Let's talk very briefly about cover letters. We ran a poll and we have 56% said they send a cover letter, and 44% said they do not send a cover letter unless it is mandatorily asked for. Often I come across recruiters who mention that cover letters are most needed, while there's another set of recruiters who say it is boring and they will only write good things about themselves. What is your take on it?
Yeah, that's actually a complicated topic. First of all, and let me tell you, the cover letter is never the most important in your application.
It's never the most.
Never the most important, because the most important is your CV. Most processes, most HRs, most recruiters, most even hiring managers start by reading your CV, because this, it contains the most important information, also the most information about you. So the CV should be complete. You should not say, oh, I will not include this information in my CV because I say it in my cover letters. The cover letter is about your motivation. So this is twofold. First, you should state why you picked this company. How did you even find it? And why did it pick your interest? Or why did it hook you? Even if it's just, I mean, in most cases, the truth would be, oh, well, I came across this job ad and I need work. So it so happens I applied to you. But this is not a good motivation. Think and go to maybe the website of the company. Think, why is this a good match for you? Why would you actually be interested in working in this company? But the second part is basically, why should this company pick you? What is special about you? What are some qualities that you think make you stand out? And also try to back it up with something. Yep.
I completely forgot asking you questions on master thesis. Suppose a person is new to the market.
Yes.
A fresher or changing professions, freshly graduating from a German university and wanting to make a career in Germany. How important do you think is a master thesis, whether or not it is relevant to the job he or she is applying for?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question, and it's probably part of a broader question, what do I do if I don't have too much experience yet? And this is exactly the point. You use everything you have, every little bit, and master thesis is not a little bit. So this is actually some mistake that a lot of people can do in their planning. I see a lot of people, say people from Russia or people from India, come to study maybe in Germany. but for their master thesis, they pick something very relevant to only like their country. It's going to be just the kind of your analysis can be super relevant, and the data doesn't matter. This can be, but you should definitely think about it and strategically pick your project. And a lot of candidates I see, they start thinking about being strategic after they have actually finished their studies. But you should be strategic, if possible, as early as possible.
It is incredible conversing with you, and I'm getting a lot of congratulatory messages. I believe everything is all right. So we'll very quickly go to the reviewing of CVs. We got quite a few CVs. We have shortlisted 3, of which we will do 1.
Okay.
And if we have time and energy, we do the 2nd. And
Okay.
for those who might be listening to this episode in the podcast format, the CVs will be uploaded to a server, and a link will be given in the description of the episode. So, shall we begin with this?
Sure, of course.
So the CV that my team has chosen is this.
Mm-hmm.
He studies in Zalun University.
Perfect. All right. So that's a one-pager, and as I said, one-pager is not quite common in Germany, and I can tell you why. Basically, because there is already a lot of information on here, so it's a very full CV, and it's a bit hard to navigate through it. So this is why I actually say just have one column and make it 2 pages. It will be perfectly all right in Germany, but it will be much better readable. So basically, the top is pretty much all right. It does not contain the age. It does not contain the visa information. So I would definitely include the age, but the visa information is not necessary. For example, you study in Germany, it's pretty much clear that you have a visa afterwards. Career objective, yeah, that's actually a summary, what I called summary before. It's all right, although it's this is a lot of empty words, because cutting edge technology, industry pioneers, leading to self-development. Yeah, everybody writes that. State something that is actually you, like, state some figures, some numbers, something that is important about you. Maybe like who are you? Are you already an embedded systems engineer, or you just studied and you are a motivated freshman? Yes, and state some very nice achievement that you have already. Good. Continuing on education. Education should not be the first part. So the thing a German HR wants to see next is work experience. Always start with the work experience. The education is actually done pretty much all right. Why? It's first of all, it's absolutely clear what is the subject. So this, I would say, for the education at least, is quite close to perfect. But it should still not be the first thing, because work experience always goes in front. The only exception being if you have pretty much non-relevant experience. Yeah, could you scroll please to the work experience? Okay, again, it's very clean and nice. So this part I like. What is your where did you work? What is the title? Here I wanted to mention that actually in this case, application developer is pretty much clear and is pretty much like self-explanatory. Is also similar, like it's the same in German. But for a lot of positions, you have really to think: is it understandable? Is it understandable to say a German HR? It doesn't really matter what your position was officially called in your contract. You should always state what something that actually explains what you were doing. Apart from that, reviewing this actual CV, what's good is that I instantly see the keywords in there everywhere. So technologies, AngularJS, MVC, HTML5, very nice. That's something I want to see quickly, and this is also something my eye looks for. It's like it's a trained ability to just scan the CV and see, yeah, that's something I'm looking for. Also very nice, the skills section is very structured, very well understandable. Yeah, I see see an achievements section all by itself. To be honest, I wouldn't advise to have this. If you have like one achievement that stands out, put it in your summary, replace something that you know that is less important. But apart from that, just put the achievements into the context where they belong. It's very easy to read it when it's in context, and it helps. Like a nice achievement helps very much, but it's hard to read it in separation.
Yeah. With your permission, could we review another CV? Because I just realized it's not really a data science CV.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, that's a developer CV. And to be honest, this is a decent one. As I said, you can improve it. I think I told you a couple of details, but all in all, that's a very good CV. And this person is really getting hired. I can tell you that because he has relevant experience and good education. And his CV looks very fine.
Yeah, we have another CV which is there.
Okay. All right. So that is, and that's my first pet peeve here. Just by looking at the CV, I cannot tell you, what's the professionals of this person. Shivanya Jadhav is not your profession. You should definitely state somewhere at the top, what are you? And yes, of course, about me says, I am a 5th semester master student in data and knowledge engineering course. And there are also the technical skills stated there. It's fine to some degree, but to some degree it's not. You should definitely state your, like, who are you? Who you identify as. So just close to your name, put your profession. That's very simple. What's good is it has links to, for example, the LinkedIn account. What's not, or what's less nice is you can easily get rid of this number. If you take a look at the link, it has a number in the back. This doesn't have to be so. I actually like the section like about me. Tells me quite some details already. That's specifically what I was missing at the top. Just don't underestimate this. Why am I making it so important? This, state your profession, state your profession. It's just because, it is like, otherwise I am lost. I need to dig through a CV and I'm already having a strange impression. Like, why don't you even tell me who you are? So this is really about first impression. The first impression should be, okay, very clear, like in the one before. Okay, so talking about work experience, this is just too little. And also this is too wordy because specifically my tasks mainly focus on the creation, updates of knowledge graphs using blah, blah. It's fine all in all, but you should really think about writing created and updated knowledge graphs using blah, blah, blah. But also state a bit more about it. I mean, it's a research assistant, so maybe it's maybe that's adequate. It depends on like how much did you actually do, but since this is like the last work experience, it should be described in a little bit more detail. So the same goes for all the rest. What is good is the format or the form, because it states the date clearly, it states where this was. So all of this is fine. But that's actually a lot of experience. And it's also ordered in the right direction. So starting with the new stuff and ending with the old. Education and training. Since specifically the Master of Science, if I understood correctly, at the top is still ongoing. And this is exactly something. So where are the dates? Where are the dates in the education and training? They are completely missing. This is important. Of course, I want to know when did you finish your bachelor's, and specifically if you're still studying masters, when did you start? When can I expect you to finish? Yeah, the summary on the top should not be the replacement for complete information at the bottom. So give all the information. So that's just a bit something missing. Then the language skills, I see in a lot of cases such very detailed language, or like this. This is actually, I think, a standard formula for that. It's not necessary at all. To be honest, it's not even necessary to state your level, this B1, C1. You can as well just go with English fluent or native or close to native, and German maybe some kind of intermediate or beginner. Then we still already have, again, have some projects. As I said, try to put them in perspective. It's what is definitely possible is to have them as an addendum. So you can definitely include a project description on, say, a separate piece of PDF or separate page as just, some detailed information about projects. The hiring manager doesn't have to read it, or the HR doesn't have to read it, but they can if they want. All right, and the final thing is hobbies and interests. As I said, can be very important if they show your character. And I think in this case, it's definitely like that. So head of student mentoring team, this is almost not a hobby. This is almost a work experience, as I would say. But also here, like trekking and successfully completed a 16,000 feet trek. So that's actually an amazing achievement. And of course, include something in this. This is nice. Technical blocks and playing table tennis, it's fine. It just gives you some, some it's a personal note. So that's in general. I mean, I still would say this is a decent CV. For Germany, definitely would get rid of the projects, include them into the actual experience up top, but also include the picture. Still very good to have a picture, and there is none.
Okay. I'll chip in a question, and then we take the audience questions. If I understood you properly, you meant that it is okay to keep education and master thesis at first in case the previous work experience is not relevant or irrelevant to the company that we are applying for.
Now I got it.
My question is,
yes.
My question is, how do we understand what is relevant? For example, I worked as a software developer earlier. I want to apply, I am doing data science masters, which is again technical, but I'm 32 years of age and I believe I can be a good manager. I apply for a project management position. Would I be required to put the work experience at first and then master thesis somewhere later?
Definitely at first, because this is why the rule, and this is quite a written rule, so nothing unwritten about that. The rule is work experience goes top. It's the most important part. So if you break this rule, you should really know what you're doing, or you should really know why you're doing it. And this could be why, because maybe your like previous work experience is really working at McDonald's. This can happen. Why not? I mean, maybe you're just staffing now. You have studied, you have done some, maybe there were some projects in studies which are relevant, but you really have, a very irrelevant prior work experience. So it was completely something different. In general, if you had proper work, you want to put it up front. By proper work, I am saying not just some, some minor jobs. Then you most probably want to still put it up front, because any work experience gives you a lot of very important skills. So if you worked for 3 years as a software developer, for example, now you want to be a data scientist, or now you want to be a project manager, yeah, the 3 years as a software developer are still very relevant. It's like not in like the meat of profession, like the important things that you will be doing in a new profession, but in all the other stuff, because you know how to work already, you know how to work as a team, you know the processes, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot value in just I have worked in a similar setting.
Since you mentioned McDonald's, there is a question from the audience which mentions something of this sort. Is by Dishan Sheikh, and he asks, I would like to know what if someone does not have a technical experience and has worked odd jobs, for example, supermarket part-time student job,
Yep.
unrelated to the field they are currently interested in. However, even in such odd jobs, you require or learn certain soft skills. How to convey this information?
Exactly. Well, just like that, because you acquire soft skills because you have done something. Like you acquire good communication skills if you have communicated with a lot of people, and it actually had some weight, not just talking to them, but work communication, where something depends on it, where it's part of your work. So you can gather that at a McDonald's or at a gas station. You just have to make me as an employer understand what did you do that you acquired the skill. Then you have to really think, what concrete things did I do that's like taught me some specific skills, and then mention that. And this is why I'm saying, like, if you had like some years of working experience, which is pretty much relevant, and then you have something irrelevant at the bottom, so working at McDonald's, then you can just state it and only mention it, but if it's actually the only working experience, then you might want to include some details and actually say, like, maybe what kind of team you worked as a part, like, of this team, or what kind of like time pressure you maybe had, and so on and so forth. And maybe you even suggested some improvements to the working process, something. Like, if you basically if somebody tells me, yeah, I learned some skills during my job in here, then I ask him basically, yeah, what did you do? How did you acquire this skill? And this is exactly what you should put in the CV, something more concrete than just saying I acquired those skills. To actually show, don't tell. Like, it's a it's a premise from a film, but it works for the CV as well.
Yeah. Aditya De has a question. Should the overall GPA be added, and does that matter?
I'm sorry, the overall GPA. Yeah, for your recent studies, definitely. And unfortunately, like in a lot of cases, still does matter, even if I don't think that just the grades from your studies should matter too much, but they do. Or am I misunderstanding the?
No, you correctly understood that.
Unfortunately, yes, still do include it, specifically if it's a good grade. Of course, then you want to include it, but even if it's a middle one, still include it.
Yeah, Akanksha has a question which I think I asked already, and I'll still repeat it because my team asks me to. So Akanksha asks, how should one go about if the work experience is not very relevant to the current studies? Would it still make sense to put it first rather than education?
Yeah, I guess I pretty much answered this before, but to repeat is yes, it still should go before, other than if it's really, really entirely irrelevant. So if you're doing a big giant switch, like from taxi driver to software developer, or from investment banker to gardener, I'm not sure why, then it is kind of like less relevant, and then probably the education is more relevant. But as I said, it's actually a rule for a good reason, put your work experience to the top is because in most cases you can't go wrong by putting your experience at the top.
Okay. At this point, I believe if any of our attendees have any questions, they can use the raise hand button on Zoom and raise their hands. And we will take 1 or 2 questions maximum. This has been an incredible conversation with you. It was supposed to be a 40 minutes. It is 1 hour 40 minutes.
It became a bit long.
Yes. So if someone has questions, please raise the hand. I mean, not raise the hand as in raise the hand on Zoom so that we can take the questions. I am getting personal texts, congratulatory texts. Please save it for the end.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I believe there are no questions, but one which my team just sent me now. Shivani Jadhav asks, is there any particular format of CV except that it should be one column? Is there any particular format of CV, example Europass or LaTeX, that is preferred by the ATS?
Oh, no, to be honest, ATS doesn't care too much. ATS really is, most ATS systems are quite general, so they will even not care about your Comic Sans in your CV and whatever format. It just should be able to piece together the information. And then you'd rather should keep an eye open for the keywords, because it will actually not only grab your information but also grade you. So it's actually about matching the keywords, which you should be worried about. Apart from that, just don't go overboard with your formats. Don't get too creative, too design, like strange design, and then you will be fine.
Okay. Indrani, would you like to ask the question as in with voice, as in with audio?
Yeah, hello. That was really an informative talk. Thank you for the session. I have just one question. Like, is it important to mention about the certification that we do? Like, is it from an external company like Oracle or Coursera? Is it important to mention that in the CV?
Nowadays, it's completely different. Mention all the certificates you have, even like the smaller ones. Even for some online courses, they are still valuable, because a lot of companies understood now that yes, you can acquire knowledge not only officially at the university, like sitting at the desk. You can also acquire the knowledge via online courses, via some trainings, and so on. So this is fine, and this is accepted. Just don't expect it to have like huge value. Like, formal education still takes precedence. So if you have a bachelor's or you have 3 online courses, the bachelor still wins.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm very thankful for this very informative conversation. I'm just wondering, is it for hiring committee matters, like if the education is from Germany, like would they like target like people who had education in Germany, or it's something that I could like not very much worry about?
Well, there is like the official statement on that, and the realistic position. So the official position would be, of course, it doesn't matter, as long as you have studied at a recognized university, and there is this Unwritten database which actually states what is what's recognized in Germany as an equal education. So apart from this, it should not matter, but unfortunately it still does matter. Because a German employer basically knows close to nothing about, say, how a university works in India, or in Russia, or in South America, or wherever. So, of course, psychologically, it's better to have studied at a, say, European, but even better at a German university. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, we take the last question from Shauna Ghosh.
Thank you for this wonderful session. Firstly, my question pertains to mainly the skills portion of the CV. So as a fresher, we try out a lot of technologies and various things, like various kinds of fields, especially in the field of software development and data science. So how do we structure our skill set? Like basically we may be proficient in something and maybe familiar with something. So how do we structure it and portray it in a correct manner?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm sorry if I cut it short. I hope I understood your question. So first of all, of course, you can partition them. So say put programming languages separately and I don't know, libraries separately and working environments separately. It's fine as long as you have enough for every section. So try to include as much as possible, but of course, things that you can at least know some details, because if you get asked later in the interview and you cannot say anything about this skill that you have actually in your CV, that will look rather bad. All right,
I would really like to thank Elshad for this session today. It's been great, and I'm not sure if in many sessions so many people continue to remain till the end of the session.
well, thank you very much, and of course you're very welcome, but also I thank you for having me here. Actually, it was fun. I think it's very important that those questions get asked a lot, because it's just not not common knowledge, but it should be. So all that I talked about, and if I can in some way contribute to this knowledge being spread, of course I'm happy to do that. And also thanks to the whole team. You guys are doing a great job, and I think it can only improve. I've heard some of the first. I've basically looked for the first season, and had at least some first impression of that.
Season 1 was very amateurish. It was the first time I tried something with audio, and I was a single man army. So,
but that's the most important thing, I think, to just start and just jump into it. That's after all, it's exactly what we did 2.5 years ago, and I don't regret, although it was quite stressful along the way. It's perfect. Really, I wish you all the best luck. And
do you have any feedback?
To be honest, I don't think you. Sorry.
Do you have any feedback about season 1?
Any feedback?
Yeah,
to be honest, I've heard too little of it. It's just jumped over it to just get some first impression. But I think that actually, I'm sure you've improved a lot from what I see from the organization now. I think it is an impressive improvement. So keep it up. I'm very sure that it's a very important work. Just because, as you said, the universities do a very bad job at actually supporting people who are students there and then wants to actually start working. There is close to no support from the university. There are those career centers, but they don't help too much. Unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with that. Also, during my studies, I was part of the what was it called? Fachschaft. I'm not sure if it's called the same in Magdeburg, but it's basically students helping students. And a lot of very clueless students I've encountered at this time, and I know that the official structures don't help too much. So it's unfortunately up to students and just other interested people who have to do their work.
Yeah, I thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you.
Hey, you have made it till the end of this amazing conversation. Please check this space out next week, Wednesday as well. Next week, we will publish another episode which you may find useful. We aim to release one new episode every Wednesday for the next 2 weeks on LinkedIn, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, Stitcher, JioSaavn, and a few more platforms. If you find this conversation useful, please share this with your friends and stay connected with us. Thank you for listening.